Hello, today is April 26th, and today we're going to be reading our psalm for this coming Sunday, the third Sunday of Easter. Our psalm for this Sunday is Psalm 30. I will exalt you, O Lord, because you have lifted me up and have not let my enemies triumph over me. O Lord my God, I cried out to you, and you restored me to health. You brought me up, O Lord, from the dead. You restored my life as I was going down to the grave. Sing praise to the Lord, all you faithful. Give thanks in holy remembrance. God's wrath is short. God's favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping spends the night, but joy comes in the morning. While I felt secure, I said, I shall never be disturbed. You, Lord, with your favor made me as strong as the mountains. Then you hid your face, and I was filled with fear. I cried to you, O Lord. I pleaded with my Lord, saying, what profit is there in my blood if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you or declare your faithfulness? Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. O Lord, be my helper. You have turned my wailing into dancing. You have put off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. Therefore my heart sings to you without ceasing. O Lord my God, I will give you thanks forever. Our psalm, this psalm, Psalm 30, is as was probably clear from the text, it's a psalm of praise. It's a psalm written in praise of God and God's saving work. It's also a psalm about praise. It's a psalm which shows how one lives a life of praise. It's a psalm of reversal. If you look at all the parallelisms that appear through the psalm, through the poetry of the psalm, you have that is weeping that spends the night and then joy coming in the morning, wailing that becomes dancing, sackcloth that becomes a clothing of joy. It's a psalm of continual back and forth, and it is a psalm which its roots are in stories of reversal. It's very likely because the Talmud, the particular Jewish commentary, wisdom on Book of Wisdom on Jewish scripture, because the Talmud says that Psalm 30 is to be read at the season of Hanukkah, it is likely, or at least according to some commentators, that Psalm 30 emerged from the events that began Hanukkah as a religious observance. Hanukkah, a quick background, even though we're a little far away from that in the calendar at this point, it is celebrated in December, around the same time as Christmas. It is an annual celebration of the rededication. Hanukkah means dedication. It is a rededication of the Second Temple in about 165 years before the birth of Jesus. So in that period, there were Greek kings who dominated much of what had formerly been Persia and Palestine and much of that region. The inheritors of Alexander the Great's huge empire, and a particular king, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, he had attempted to outlaw the worship of Yahweh, had attempted to desecrate the temples, kill all of the priests, ban the observance of traditional Jewish ways of living, banning circumcision, banning the reading of scripture. So Hanukkah is a festival which celebrates the rededication of the temple after the Maccabean revolt against this king Antiochus. That there was a general revolt against this religious oppression, and the temple, whereas it had been desecrated by foreign worship and sacrifice of unclean animals, in 165, about 2 years after it had been desecrated, the temple was retaken and rededicated, cleansed and rededicated to the worship of God. So Hanukkah is a celebration of reversal, and it is generally assumed, or that as the story is told, that this is only possible because of God's intercession for the people of Israel. In the story, in the book of the Maccabees, uh, King Antiochus only dies because of God's intervention. He dies of a bad case of stomach worms. It's pretty gruesome. We don't read Maccabees very much at all. Very rarely do we touch on that particular book or books, first and second. But sometimes, maybe it would be an interesting Bible study to do a historical study of that book. Off topic. Psalm 30, which is what we're talking about. Psalm 30 then is a product of a people who have known what it means to suffer, have known what it means to, in a sense, be down in the pit. In verse 3, that says, you brought me up, O Lord, from the dead. You restored my life as I was going down to the grave. O Lord, you raised my soul. And another reading or translation is from the dead, is from Sheol, from the underworld. You have raised me up from a place where there is no life or voice or movement. And the sense is that the person who calls for who is praising God and calls for God to be praised does this because whereas previously they were entirely unable even to voice what they were able to, even to say anything. They were struck by silence. They were struck by oblivion. Where there is life, this person is saying, it is because of God. And because we have life, we have hope and a future. And therefore we are to praise. Therefore we are to turn not just to praise, but to a life defined by praise. Because it might seem that verse, I want to point us again to another verse, to verse 9. It might seem that you are that the person who is saying this, the psalmist, is bartering with God here. What profit is there in my blood if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you or declare your faithfulness? Again, if I am dead, if I am silenced, who is going to sing praises to you, God? Who is going to worship? And that might sound like bartering to God. And that might sound like the person offering terms to God, using what leverage they have. And I think that is not the best reading, or a better reading, rather than bartering with God, than saying, if you do this for me, God, I'll do this, is to say, in death, there is no place for praise or life or relationship. It is in life that God has relationship with us. That we are not being the God saving work is not simply because God is just wants us for our own sake, but instead that God is raising us to something that defines our life. That our life after we are saved is going to be changed. This continual reversal, I think, points to a way of living that is glass half full. You have turned my wailing into dancing. Not only am I not wailing, am I not mourning anymore, I am in fact dancing. Not only am I not in sackcloth anymore, I have been clothed with joy. God raises the psalmist. God pulls the psalmist from the brink of disaster to live a life that's defined by praise. And what does that mean? What does it mean to live a life that's defined by praise? It means to always be celebrating, always to be approaching life with joy, with the appreciation that what we have is fundamentally a gift, that life itself is something that is filled with complications and dangers and worries, but life itself is such a gift that it only deserves to be lived with praise. And that is praise then means not just sitting in worship, not just singing or praying in the using the right words, but living confessionally, living a new life that is more than just gratitude. It's committing ourselves to others, to make commitments to the fact that God has saved us, and therefore we are defined by that saving work, that we are saved to be a blessing to others. As God did for Abraham, he was blessed to be a blessing for others. And so, if our life is defined by praise, by the reversals that God does in our lives, the fact that God does turn our mourning into joy, does make the weeping in the night joy in the morning, it is to be a life that is lived with those who are weeping now, to be the one who is for those who are in sackcloth now, and to be the presence of Christ for them in the here and now, knowing that although they are weeping now, they will have joy in the future. That God is always going to be the God of reversal, that God has care for everyone. Psalm 30 is this beautiful psalm of reversal, and it's a psalm that is for us if we are in the first half of this story before the reversal, and for us who are in the second half. Um, because this story of reversal is, in a sense, the continual remaking of heaven and earth that God has started in the life of Jesus and is going to complete in the final return, in the final resurrection and the remaking of heaven and earth. This is the story of our faith. It's a story both at our individual sense and in each of our own lives, and it's a story that all of creation is going to be a part of. I hope you are having a good week. I will see you on Sunday. All right, bye-bye.